Welcome to the Business Performance Podcast, where we feature expert thought leaders and cover their best strategies, stories, and advice that you can use to successfully mature your own business performance. Now, here is your host, business coach, Henry Schneider. Well, hello, everyone. This is Henry Schneider with the Business Performance Podcast, and today it's my pleasure to talk with Axel Schneider from UiPath, which is one of the leading UI companies in the world today, and he's the Customer Success Director. So, Axel, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Henry. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Sure. So, could you please describe for people who don't know what UiPath is, just a little bit about the company, your types of customers you work with, and the types of products and services you provide?
Sure. UiPath is what I would call now a startup company. We are a very, very young company, not listed yet, and we have developed robotic process automation software. So RPA has been probably in most people's circle in the last 2-3 years, and it's definitely an aspect where most large organizations are starting to look at. So we have a product which helps people basically to automate processes. This is what RPA stands for, Robotic Process Automation. And around this, we have a whole ecosystem now of additional supplementary solutions which help from capturing the idea to the point where you measure the business outcome, everything in between. So it helps you to automate your process, but it also helps you how do you actually get started and how do you keep measuring the benefits of your automation processes.
Okay, so when you say you're still in the startup phase, what's the age of the company right now?
Well, you have to go back to the founders, to Daniel Diners. He has been tinkering along around automation libraries for developers for a long time, and the market fit came probably around 6, 7, 8 years ago. And for the last 3 or 4 years, we are called UiPath. So this is when it all started in all seriousness, and we are now at I think around C or D funding. I lose track of it. I think around D funding. So I think we're not a startup per se anymore. We have now nearly 3,000 employees, and are well established. So we can't call ourselves a startup anymore, but we're still a very young company.
Yeah, I went to a UiPath. I guess I'm not going to call it an event, but it was some kind of little meeting here in Austin back in September where they brought in one of your partners and they were talking about what they're doing. And I guess it's the developing and then the use and trading of the bots. So it's kind of a very interesting business model.
It is, yes. And as you appreciate these days, it's not like your typical software licensing. You buy it once off and then you can keep running it forever and you have to spend millions of dollars. It's a very small entrance license fee, and it's an annual renewal then.
Okay.
And we're starting to explore the cloud side as well, obviously.
Okay. All right. So now, as we go through here, what I want to focus in is on quality. Now, quality is a very broad term. So from your perspective, how do you define quality?
So I look from an automation perspective, quality, and there are a couple of aspects we talk to our customers about when it comes to RPA quality. The first thing is from a poor process perspective, like don't just go ahead and automate any process you like to be automated just because you can. Have a look what other tools you have in your toolkit to improve the process and maybe get some cost benefits or other business benefits out of it. Then if it has the requirements for automation, and we look at a couple of things I can mention later, and you say, okay, let's go and automate it, make sure you have good developers. I think the key is really having at least one top developer when you start really small who understands automation and can develop good quality code. oftentimes I find that a lot of automation processes have been put in production, and then the maintenance tail, which comes automatically with that, is overwhelming for the organization. And suddenly they say, well, our ROI is not even close to what we thought it would be. So good quality code helps you prevent a really long maintenance tail. And then your operational model needs to be looked at very carefully because it is different. RPA involves a lot more. We've done automation in IT for a long time, for 50, 60 years. And IT is always enclosed. It's like one department, if you want so. And now suddenly we're going into the business with process automation. And we have lots of people involved who are not accustomed to IT. And suddenly we're taking things away and automating. So there's a lot of aspects we need to look from a quality perspective, but they are the main ones I mentioned to you.
Sure. Okay, so when you start talking to people from a customer success perspective, what are one or two of the biggest misconceptions out there with respect to quality and RPAs and what you're trying to do?
The biggest one is probably that RPA is easy. Mm-hmm. There's a lot to it. It's not rocket science. And we show that it's not rocket science. We run what we call academy live sessions where we get people in who have no idea about automation and guide them along the process of building one simple automation with them within a 2-hour time frame. So it is possible and it's achievable, but because of all the complexities, you're talking to business users, you have IT involved, security involved, you will have pretty like compliance involved. There's a whole aspect of complexity involved which you need to capture. And therefore, I find that oftentimes when companies decide to go down the RPA path and they involve change manager, they're doing the right thing. Change manager, not from an IT perspective, but from a people perspective, because there's a lot of aspects where people are worried about what does that mean, introducing automation into my job? Do I lose my job? And have concerns. And if you don't address these concerns, they can become a hurdle and a blocker.
Yeah. Well, security seems to me a big concern too. That I know I was talking to one company that they made chatbots, and then they got wrapped around, I guess, with I don't know, Ticketmaster or something, where they were hacked, and then they were saying, okay, it was your chatbot that caused the hacking. Well, eventually turned out that wasn't the case, but that's it. I mean, I think that seems to be a big concern as well, is be able to maintain the security of your RPA, so it's not vulnerable to people poking at it.
Oh, absolutely. And governance and following a very governance process, which you already have in your company, is very important. So don't ignore it, because as a developer, you will have the access to specific software mimic the human user on the computer, and you will get access to systems which as a developer you probably wouldn't have otherwise to create the automation. But the right governance then in place makes sure that nothing else is basically being developed which you wouldn't be able to do as a human user. So if you look at security, you always have your security department involved early, because if you don't, they will put their hands up and say, well, we don't let you do anything until we actually understand what you're going to do, because we have to protect the company and the IP, and we can't risk that any of our customer data gets left outside.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. I don't know if maybe you don't have the insight into it or not, but from what I understand is that you have like a library of bots that you sell, or it can be resold, but then also the partners will also come up with a use case, create a bot, and then you put it into your library. Is that correct?
Yes, so we have a marketplace basically where we provide code, and UiPath does a lot of certification of the code. So basically has a really close look at what the code actually does, and gives it our tick. But a lot of partners can put their and customers can put their code up there for other customers to download and reuse. Yes.
Okay. All right. So what do you do if you've got two different RPAs that are similar but different? Maybe the core is the same, but they do there's some extra things that they do differently. Do you keep both of them, or do you just try to force, say, let's go for one.
Are you referring to some of these models you can get from the marketplace?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so when it comes to automation, automating a process, especially a business process, there's always more than one possibility how you can do this. There are always multiple solutions. Think about an office clerk who does specific task on a computer. Let's say he receives invoices, looks at the invoice, it's a PDF, opens up SAP, makes sure that the purchase order was actually sent, that the values are okay, and all these things. So there are a couple of ways you can do this. You might be able to force the sender to send not a PDF, but to actually enter all the invoice details electronically into your system already. So then you have a lot less automation to do. But you also can use OCR to read the invoice, or if it's PDF, you can actually read it directly in as clear text. So already we have like a couple of ways we potentially could define the process and automate it. When it comes down to using reshareable code, if it's from our marketplace, if it has the UiPath tick, it has been checked by us. But even if it doesn't, it's all clearly readable. So if you get a developer to look at it, you can make sure that this code is clean and fits your solution design. Right. So it's not like a binary file which you can't see what's actually happening inside. It's all clear text.
Oh, okay. I was, I'm not being knowledgeable enough. I was thinking it was just like a Lego brick. You would just buy the black box, the bot, but now you actually see what's written in there, so then you have a better feel for it.
Yes, so in our development environment, it's not hard coding for most of the time. The majority of tasks is drag and drop and specifying what exactly needs to be done, and capturing images on your screen, and like the things you do, we can actually record and then build a workflow, and the developers basically take this off, fine tune it, harden it a little bit so it doesn't fall over when the screen is slightly moved or when the menu changes slightly on the screen, so it still works this way. But it's all then saved in clear text file. It's not like created into an executable binary artifact.
All right, wonderful, thank you. Now, you mentioned one of the fears about automation, that people are afraid they're going to lose their jobs. What are some of the other fears about that you encounter when you start trying to convince people to use RPAs or automation?
I think security, not knowing what this robot is doing. Think about automation is actually quite big in the financial sector, and insurance, and a lot of organizations start in their finance department with automation. And one of the big questions we always get is, oh, what if this bot is taking a payment and decides to transfer it to a different account?
Mm-hmm.
Well, for the bot to do it, it has to be told to do it, right? At the end of the day, we're looking at a piece of software which has to be programmed to do one specific task. It's not clever enough to decide things and change them on the fly. We have to program it. So somebody has to program it. Yeah. So this is why I mentioned the governance aspect. You don't just go and have developers developing and put them into production. You have like a governance process where you oversee, okay, who actually checks that what has been done is actually okay, that it works, that it's reliable, and that it does what it's supposed to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and those, I mean, yeah, those are hard code. You don't have a deep learning where it's self-modifying and it's learning and getting better at it, because then you don't know what it's doing.
That's right. So automation at its core, it's just software which does one step after another. Mm-hmm. It's very simple and very basic.
Okay, so when you're talking to the customers and they express these types of fears, how do you get them to overcome those fears?
Well, we share. Yeah, it's actually not too difficult to come most objections in that space, because we have a lot of customers who are doing it now. So give you an idea, we don't want proof of concepts anymore because it has been established that it works. RPA works and creates business benefit. So to overcome these objections, we generally share what other customers do. We link them up with other customers, either in a similar industry, if that's what they prefer, or even other industries. Sometimes they prefer other industries, for them to share experiences. We have lots of white papers on the topic where we can share as well. So it's really giving them the proof points that there's no reason to be concerned about it, as long as you follow your existing methodologies to deal with RPA like you do with any other new digital transformation initiative within your business.
Yeah, and I'm thinking too is that you could just say, well, it's just an app. You don't have to call it an RPA. It's just another application that you're using.
Yes. Yeah, like look, when I first started to look around for my new job before I joined UiPath, I came against RPA, and I had robotic process automation, and I saw two of my old colleagues had moved there 6-7 months earlier, and I said, what a strange thing that they moved from Hewlett Packard to a robotics company, and I just couldn't get it. And I looked at this, and on the image you see the robot as well. So I said, this is odd. And it takes a few minutes before you realize, oh, this is actually software automation. So the term was coined a couple of years ago, I think before UiPath became a name. And now the industry accepts it widely as RPA is software automation on the business process side. It's confusing. You have to explain it sometimes.
Yeah, because when you start looking at it, there's like three different groupings. You got the cognitive automation, which is the RPAs. You got cognitive insight, which is looking at the data and trying to draw relationships and understanding. And then you've got the deep learning aspect where it's the self-modifying code, which is really it's like T2 Judgment Day type of stuff, because you have no idea what it's actually doing anymore.
Yeah, well, that's not the case where we sit. Having said that, we are embracing AI in a big way now. A lot of customers have started with automation as its simplest form, and as they mature, they get more and more complex. And now we are at a place where customers can actually make use of more complex business process scenarios and include AI into some of their basic decision making.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it seems to me, even with the RPAs, you start out, you've got the little building blocks, but then you're going to have an RPA that goes, it's an umbrella that goes across those, so you can increase the complexity of all of this as well.
Look, you can, and one of the risks is that these days we're talking about citizen developers, so rolling out robots to every employee and training up those who are really interested and have an eye for it to actually develop their own automation. It might be just for themselves, running on their laptops or desktops, or maybe for their work group. But not having to rely on what we call a center of excellence, which is a limited resource team of RPA experts, some developers, some business analysts, developing all the automation for your whole organization. They would be bogged down with all these requests they would get from everybody who, once they actually understand what automation can do for them, they will be very interested in getting more and more done for them, because everybody does work on a computer they don't really like, and it's really mundane and boring. And you can automate most of this, even if it's just like a saving of 2 or 3 minutes a day. Now, if you can develop that yourself within half an hour, that's great, but you need to be enabled. If you have to give it to a centralized team and they get hundreds of thousands of these requests, it will never happen. So citizen development is a big thing for us, and our idea is there to give everybody enough training to understand what automation is. It will be coming into everybody's job in one way or another, as will AI in some form or another, whether we see it or not. But with automation, it can be very obvious and it can be embraced by people. It's not rocket science.
Okay. All right. So, Axel, could you share a story with us of where you helped a company to overcome some of these obstacles and then succeed?
Yeah, sure. So there are quite a lot of companies where customer success can help, and actually we do it almost in every single company where we get involved. From a customer success perspective, our task is really to make sure that the customer sees value in our product as fast as possible, and then obviously to grow the account. From our perspective, is sharing where are the pitfalls with automation. When you start without any guidance, a lot of organizations have started the last few years and have tried it themselves. Maybe had someone helping them along the line, but because there's a cost associated, they often then let them go really quickly, and many times way too early. So for us, it's coming in and guiding them along. And that starts very basically with helping them. What are the core people you need in your core team with automation? So I'll give you an example. There's a company in Australia which is in the health sector. They are bidding for business from people who have been given government funding to help them improve their life. So generally people who are disabled or need specific work done in their house to make their life a lot more easy for them. So this work has to be done, and there's ongoing service as well. So these service providers, as we call them, they have to go to government website. They have to download the information the participants, like the clients, basically have put up there, and then offer them what they can do for them. And this specifically health company had a problem with the case that all this stuff was manual. So they had like a team of 5 to 6 people every day going on the website, downloading the PDFs of the clients, going through this, entering only a bit of information into their proprietary system, and then trying to go back to them with an offer. And that process would then take 3 to 4 weeks, in which many cases these participants decided, well, this takes too long, this is too slow, I'm going elsewhere. So this customer decided, why can't we automate some of this task? Downloading this PDF should be a simple task. Reading the content of the PDF, a bit more challenging, because we need to understand it's a 30, 40 page document and we need to get very specific information out of it, and then put it into proprietary system. Now, putting it into the system is not that difficult either. So understanding the document was tricky, and this particular company decided to use NLP, natural language processing, to understand what's in the text and then classify it and then put it into the proprietary system. And with the automation guidance we provided them, and they themselves had a Python developer, which also got engaged there, they actually had a fantastic use case and a business case up, and it paid itself within a few months' time. So that they got the 3 to 4 weeks response time to the participants, out of which they lost per month, they worked out around 170 people. So business they would never get because they were too slow. The company, once they automated most of this process, they had employee satisfaction increase, because it was partly dumb work to copy things from PDF into a proprietary system. These people now could spend a bit more time on more intelligent things, actually responding to the participants. The computer system, the proprietary system, had all the information captured they actually wanted to have captured out of this PDF, and the participants got an answer. As a result, the company didn't lose any participant because they were too slow to respond. And the whole thing paid itself, like I said, within a couple of months' time. After 6 months, the business decided that this so far has given them more than $400,000 in additional revenue, which they didn't have before.
That's impressive. Now, if you could take that story and distill it down to like a sentence or two, what would you say would be the moral?
Look very carefully for your cases you automate, right? You don't want to start really complex, because you need a little bit maturity and expertise. But the low-hanging fruit is low-hanging because it's easy and simple, and it's not always the best for automation from a business return perspective. But it's good to start somewhere to gain experience, but then start thinking about where's the biggest bang for your buck, right? Automation has a cost associated. It's not just the license, but it's setting up the whole operation as well. The license is actually a really small cost. So looking very carefully what you automate.
Okay, that's very good. Yeah, it seems to me that, with the low-hanging fruit, you want to grab that just to demonstrate to management, hey, this is what we can do, and see what the return is, and then go after the more ones that get the bigger bang for the buck. So.
Yeah, and also overcome hurdles, like to show business partners. Generally, automation starts within a specific business unit, let's say HR, finance. Finance is a very common one. A lot of other business unit will maybe hear about it, but will be skeptical about it, because they haven't bought into RPA yet. So for them to see that it actually does something, you want to have quick results. The more complex an automation is to automate, the longer it takes to put into production. So you don't want to say to your subject matter expert who actually does the job, yeah, we're going to automate that, but it will take us 3 months. And by the time it's actually in production, it's like 4 or 5 months, because you need time to capture the process, automate it, develop it, test it, and then put it in production. So you don't want that window too big, because you lose complete momentum and trust. So you want to go with the low-hanging fruit to get quick wins. And once you've got people on board and said, oh, okay, this actually works, and there's a business benefit, that's the time when you start, okay, now let's actually carefully look at the automation, what we do now.
Okay, great. Now, let's see, I'm kind of lost where my, okay, thank you. Okay, now, what are some of the common pitfalls or mistakes that you see people making when they are trying to do all the automation?
Well, there are many, and none of them are really hard, but you lose a lot of time and sometimes money if you don't avoid them. I think the first one is focus. Like with everything you do in business, if you do it half-heartedly, if you do it with a team which really has core other tasks which are not related or not predominant RPA related, you don't really focus on the topic itself, and therefore it becomes more a hobby. And hobbies are very seldom very successful within an organization. So you need a focused team, even if it's just with 1 or 2 people in the beginning, but they're dedicated to RPA, so they can really spend all their focus on getting it up and running. The second thing is executive buy-in. If you don't have stakeholders in the executive level to support it, it always will become a little fish pond on the side of somebody's business unit. And it will never grow out of it. And that's really a pity, because there's so much potential in it. If it's done properly and you've got executive buy-in, they don't have to be involved every day, but every month, every 2 months, they should be able to update their peers on their levels and support the initiatives. And as they are successful and show the success, all the other peers already know, okay, these guys have proven it. Now let's grow. Let's put a plan together. How can we scale automation? And what we find these days is organizations where automation comes from the very top straight away, they want to put a plan in place straight away. How do we scale once we actually have ourselves set up? And we help them with that. Another pitfall is, like I mentioned earlier, is selecting the wrong processes. Because most organizations don't have RPA expertise in-house. Even if they have developer, which is good, they can pick up RPA quickly, but they don't have expertise how to develop RPA. They can do it, but what are the best practices? So they still need to learn these things. When you see the wrong process being automated, they might have put a lot of investment in with no return or negative return. That gives RPA straight away a bad reputation within the organization, and they put it on hold or drop it completely.
All right, so when you are talking with your client companies, what level in the organization are you really working with when you're with RPAs? Are you down, like, are you a director level, or are you down within the developer level, on the opposite side, or where are you?
So realize that when I get involved, the purchase order has been placed on the UiPath, and the sales representative have asked me to look after this specific client and work with them. So I get generally introduced to what we call the RPA lead within the organization.
Okay.
That can be an executive on the operational side. So we're not talking CXO level, we're talking at least 1 level down, sometimes even 2 levels down,
Okay.
depending on where they start, right? They might start in a finance department. Let's say the CFO signed off on the initiative, and the next level down then will basically say, okay, look, I will oversee it, but you will have to work with my finance admin. He basically will run the project to begin with, or the initiative, and then we work with them from there. But we always face back to the CFO level, because internally they will have to sell the success, and then they will have to explain to them what is required to be successful. So we give them all the tools, we give them all the information, but they will have to build it themselves and go back to the CXO level to actually sell it themselves. We have helped them with presenting to the leadership teams about automation, to educate them, to show them examples like I mentioned to you earlier with the health company, to share with them that other companies have been successful in this space, but it's not our daily engagement with these people.
Yeah, the reason I was asking that, because I worked for a while with Borland. I was with a consulting company, and we had kept working at the C level. Borland
Mm.
acquired us, and Borland was selling tools at the developer level. And they were looking to see if they could take us as consultants and get into the C level area. That doesn't work in the consulting, business model. But they were entering at the wrong level in the organization to try to sell these things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. From a sales perspective, it's different. You have to go a little bit higher because you're selling a business tool, and you want to sell the business outcome. So you definitely need the support from a
Okay.
CXO.
All right. Now, before we started, I was asking you about a defining moment in your life. You say it goes way back to the Commodore 64. So there's probably a lot of people here don't even know what that is anymore. So could you talk about how the Commodore 64 affected your life and your career?
Oh, absolutely. I was a teenager when the C64 came out, and it became a very, very popular home PC. Well, I think it was called home computer.
Mhm.
It was predominantly used as a gaming machine, I have to admit. But I learned assembler on it, and I learned to program very basic things in BASIC. Um, and as I was spending lots of weekends and lots of nights doing these things with friends and myself, and just silly things, like writing little programs to keep all our friends' addresses in there, like just to get some experience. I just decided I want to do something with my computer for the rest of my life with computers. So that's basically when I made up my mind. When I was around 15, 16, I played around with the C64 for quite a long time.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, those. I remember having one. I didn't ever buy one, but I got it on loan from just to play around with it. The you know, Early in my career, I rapidly decided that I don't like writing code. I like the systems engineering aspect, what are the requirements, but I hate writing code. So I always kind of stepped away from that.
Yeah, it took me a few more years. I was already my first job when I realized that programming is not for me because it wouldn't let me sleep. I wouldn't rest until I've actually tried another solution to a problem or potential solution to a problem I was thinking of. So yeah, I was in my early 20s when I decided that developing programming, but I never specialized in programming either. It was more like the working with computers and IT, the general term, and that's what I'm specialized in. So all my life I've been with computer companies, or with companies who sold computer solutions.
Okay. Now, in a similar vein, thinking about your life, can you share an experience you had from growing up, maybe, or maybe even later on, that still affects how you approach business today?
That's a good one, Henry. Um, the, there's probably not just one moment. I think as you mature and get older, you learn a lot more and you stay a lot calmer. I still remember getting upset as recently as 10, 12 years ago in a sales role because things changed within a company, and I thought it was to the detriment of my customer service quality, which I was very proud of. Um, but as you get older, you realize, yeah, there might be a couple of hiccups, but if you work with people, you always sort things out and you make them work. And I think that's probably like the maturity you get over the years, that working with people in a nice way and making sure that you're all on the same page gets you the outcome you need. And especially if you're focused on these things, and you're all working towards the same goal. So yeah, I think it's not just one moment. I think there are many, many little moments as you learn and reflect back on what you've done in the past and see, oh, you could have handled that better. And next time you try in a different way and find, well, suddenly this works much better because you talk to the people much nicer. So, yeah, outcome is positive. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so now, Axel, what does success look like for Axel Schneider?
Oh, at the moment in my current role at UiPath, I get a thrill out of it when I see that companies are really embracing RPA in the right way. And that starts off really small, getting their first wins, and then start to put plan in place. Okay, how can we grow this and get the benefit out of it for the whole organization? So talking about citizen developer, putting learning programs in there, which end in hackathons, which end up in putting processes into production. We're working with quite a few customers around these programs, and we had a bit of success in this space in Australia specifically. So I get a thrill out of it when companies say, okay, let's do this. And when they also say that automation is a tool for them. It's not like the silver bullet which solves everything. It's one of the many tools they use, but doing it right, they get a lot of benefit out of it. And that's just fun because you can see that by the end of a year, they will have several $1 million saved in time and effort. And that's just a piece of software which has achieved that with the right team behind it, getting the benefits out of it.
Okay. All right. Now, I read something here recently, and I don't recall exactly where I saw it. It's probably on one of the LinkedIn news feeds, but the statement was that small cap companies cannot offset the rising labor costs with technology as easily as large cap companies. So what do you think about that statement? Is that a true statement? Do you agree with it?
Do I agree with it? I probably don't know that I can comment on that from a generic perspective. I don't understand exactly what they have looked there. When it comes to automation, automation goes across the board. So small companies, large companies, they all can get the benefit. They just have to be slightly different approaches. The large companies has to straight away economy of scales. Right? Think about a call center when you have hundreds of people in there and you automate something which improves just the call by 30 seconds. It has a massive ripple effect across the board. Small companies don't have this. Small companies have like maybe one or two people sitting there answering the phone. But even they can get a lot of benefit out of it, but you have to look at proportion. You can't spend 5 weeks developing the out process to automate it for a saving of 5 minutes. Two people have. So you need to look at other automation processes which help them along, make them more efficient and productive, make their life easier, hopefully happier employees, and get the benefit out of it. So you need to be careful with small and large organizations from a process selection perspective.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, in terms, I guess the other way to look at that is, small companies don't have the budget, to pay for some of this new technology. And, I would think, that, even to pay for a bot might be on a subscription, might be cost prohibitive for them. So what would be an alternative approach?
So I haven't mentioned it yet, but we have a very extensive partner network and they're doing an amazing job. And there are some partners in there who provide the robot kind of service where they target small companies specifically and help them to find the right process, they automate for them, and small companies pays a small fee for that. So they don't necessarily own the license. The partner might own the license, but runs the automation for them. So there are different models out there, and there are more and more partners looking at alternative models to make it a lot more affordable for the small company sector. But there are solutions out there to tackle this. But Henry, the entry point, I keep saying like our license cost is way too low. The benefits I see companies get out of it and the cost of the license, there's such a small item at the end of the day, looking at the savings. Now, the same is not true for a really small company, I give you that, but you can have a small commitment from a license perspective and get quite a good outcome at the end of the year. If you look at it from a longer period, like 6 to 12 months, we're talking about ROI is very achievable, even for small companies. It's actually a fair price. It's not prohibitive.
Yeah, I would think that's probably true. I mean, if you're going to if you say for example, you're going to spend $8,000 on a subscription, you should be saving more than that by using the RPA.
Absolutely. And if you don't, you selected the wrong process.
Right.
It's really as simple as that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now, what from your perspective, what are your top 3 process or business concerns from a customer success perspective?
I think the top concern I always have when I go into any company to to help them and guide them is, do they have the management support?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's not obvious because the people we talk to is not the CXO level. The people I talk to is not the CXO level. So I take it for granted if they tell me, yeah, we have the whole management support is behind it. I take it as a given and I start working with them. But you find out really quickly whether that's the case or not, because they either get the support and they get the resources they need to be successful, or they don't. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's generally when I bring it up again and say, okay, we need to find a way to get this management buy-in to make it successful. I think that's number one. Number two is, even large companies, while they say that automation is important to them, they need to put a business case up for every single process they automate. That is not just prohibitive in terms of time and effort required, but it reduces the potential ROI massively, because you spend a lot of time, extra time, to get all the financials sorted out up front and write the documents and convince people. It's just a very lengthy process. You want to look at the financials, don't get me wrong. You want to look at the ROI of an automated process. Absolutely. But as management, you need to believe that the center of excellence you establish, that they know what they're doing and that they have measures in place to select the right processes, and not insist every single time on a lengthy business process and business justification before you actually go down that path. That slows down everything dramatically. You lose momentum, and you don't get the support of all the people, because they come with ideas to you to automate 6 months ago and you still haven't done anything. That's the number two. And the number three is generally, if you run automation as a project, which some organizations do, it's necessary that they are not successful, but it's a lot more unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
So when I see that companies run it as a project, I always get concerned, because projects come and go.
Mm-hmm.
And automation is not something you do come and go, because somebody needs to keep these robots running and look after them and maintain them. IT might upgrade another system which might break all the robots you have behind it using this system. So you need to prepare for this. You need to have the robots included in these upgrade processes to make sure, okay, when the new software comes out there, it's using, let's say, a new version of SAP, everything changes.
Mm-hmm.
The robot needs to be retrained. So you can't have that in the project.
Right. Yeah.
So project is a big risk factor for me.
Yeah. So I guess now, just to clarify in my mind, when you're talking about the business case, is that you're looking at what's the return on investment? Are you picking the right process? And what do you expect should be the return on using this RPA? Is that what you mean?
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Now, when you look at your customer base, what is the most important question your customer should be asking when they consider coming to UiPath for help?
So are you assuming that they're already established that they want to do automation at this point?
Yeah, otherwise they wouldn't necessarily be coming to you. So
right. Okay. Well, we get customers who are unsure about it and just want to explore and see what it can do. Right. Yeah. So they're basically not educated yet. But most customers have done their own homework as they do these days, especially with IT technology. And they look at what your UiPath can bring to the table in terms of automation. Mm-hmm. And we have a couple of differentiator. The main thing is that we have two ways of automating things. One is where the human does something with the process and then hands it off to the robot, or the other way around. The robot starts something and then stops because the human needs to do something. We call this attended. The human is basically involved in the process. And the other thing is basically where the robot just does things in the background. It runs maybe on the server somewhere and does things, and the human doesn't have to be involved in that part of the process. We're not talking end-to-end process. We're talking always like part processes here. Right. So the technology has to be scalable. So we have like a centralized software there. We call it the orchestrator, which we use to manage all our robots. And we actually don't know where the real limit is, but we know it can easily scale to 20, 30,000 robots. We know that, but we don't know how far further it can go, like 40, 50,000. No, we don't have a customer in that size. I think our largest customer is over 12 or 1,500 robots these days. So it's significant, very significant, but way off the 20, 30,000 mark. But then we look at most customers we have, they actually have, in the first year, they have anything between 5 and 30, 40 robots. It takes them 2-3 years to come into the dozens of robots, or even in the low hundreds.
Okay. All right. So all indications from what I see is that the whole business is going to, for AI and all, is just going to skyrocket with over the next 10 years. So there's going to be more and more competition out there. So you're not the only ones building RPAs. So how does somebody decide who they should go to get their needs satisfied by picking the right RPA?
Well, the first thing customers do, that they look at like independent reports, like take Gartner, take Forrester, take some of the other research companies. They all do their homework. They all compare the big RPA vendors and what they're good at, what they're not so good at, the weaknesses, the strengths, and then they rate them. So customers use this as a general guide. The other thing is, it depends on the strategy. If you want to become an organization who embraces automation company-wide, and you have the idea potentially to have most employees involved somehow, you're looking at citizen development, you want to have a development environment which is designed for non-developers. Right? So you want to be able to just drag and drop things and say, okay, in this Excel file, I need these columns and these rows, and easily specified without much programming around it, actually no programming around it. So you need to look at tools which can do this. Now UiPath has this tool, and I'm sure other RPA tools will have this soon very too. But you have to see what is it we can offer which you need, and does it fit? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a tool, right? It's just one tool of many tools you have in a toolbox, and you pick the one which best fits for you.
Okay. All right. Now, if you were to, since you've only been there a little over a year now, and I guess this is your first experience to RPA, was that what you were saying?
It's a first in RPA, absolutely. I was involved in automation, but we're talking about data center automation a couple of years before. It's similar, but very different.
Okay. All right. So if you had to, after reflecting back over it, since you started with UiPath, is there anything that you would do differently today than when you started a year and a half ago?
I don't think so, Henry. I can't think so. In terms of UiPath went through an interesting year last year. If I had some influence and some say there, I probably would say let's go a little bit slower. We went like 150 miles an hour, and that obviously takes some course correction with itself, and we had to go through that process. It's also typical for companies growing very fast. But yeah, that probably would be the only thing, if I had influence over it and could fix it, would fix it. But in terms of my approach, I think it's just more stricter. It has become more stricter. In the beginning, I was happy to engage with every customer, even those who didn't, for example, have any management support at all, and just see maybe we can help that. These days, I'm a lot more selective. So I've got limited time, obviously, and my team has limited time. So we are very strict in terms of selecting the right customers we believe we can actually help and guide along.
Okay. Okay, great. So Axel, we're running out of time now, and I want to be conscious of what your day is just starting, mine's ending. So thank you. How can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about you or about UiPath?
Sure. UiPath.com is probably the easiest way to learn anything about RPA. All our online training is free, so you can just go to our academy and start learning and have like basic and then more advanced training courses if you like. To get in contact with me, the easiest probably like via LinkedIn. My contact details are published there. Email is published there. Mobile is published there. So just call me. Just give me a call. Send me an email if you like. I'm very happy to engage.
Okay. All right, Axel, this has been great. I really enjoyed talking with you today and learning more about UiPath and what you do there. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Henry. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Business Performance Podcast with your business coach, Henry Schneider. For more episodes and business strategies, please visit welcome.ppqc.net/blog. That's www.welcome.ppqc.net/blog. And remember to subscribe so you can get the latest episodes. Thank you.